Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Jim Carafano at Heritage. I'm going to kick it over to Glenn at Saratoga here in just a minute, but I think we'll just give it another minute or two for other folks to join in. Then Glenn will kind of go over the ground rules and introduce our speakers, and we'll get started. And we were just joking before that, when Glenn and I had this idea, we really didn't think that that whole part of the world was going to be turned upside down with stuff going on in Syria and Georgia and everything else. But so it turned out, I think, is a really opportune time for a conversation about all of this. And then Glenn's going to tell us exactly what the Trump administration is going to do, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm very excited about that.
Yes.
Yeah,
my crystal ball.
Yes, I'm just kidding. All right, we're going to give it another 60 seconds. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us and participating. And as a lot of I'd love to say that in the U.S., the space of people working on the Caucasus and Central Asia and the connectivity is expanding and growing, but it's really not actually. But Glenn's been great at this, and Heritage is super interested in this. So we are always interested in bringing people together and having more conversations and sharing situation awareness. So if anybody has any ideas or they want to suggest anything, I think I can speak for Glenn that we're happy to try to organize more and connect more people. So because I think this is an important part of the world, not for the U.S. and really the entire Eurasian community. So the more I think we share information and discuss about these issues, the better off I think it is for all the people that share the hope of linking free and open spaces together and improving prosperity and security and freedom for all of us. So with that, let me turn it over to Glenn Howard. As many of you probably know, Glenn has recently stood up a new think tank called the Saratoga Foundation. And against my advice, everybody else thinks it's a really great name. And he can also explain why it's called the Saratoga Foundation. But Glenn has put together a tremendous panel here to talk about the Caspian Sea and the issues surrounding that. So I'm going to turn over to Glenn. He's going to go over the ground rules, introduce our speakers, and then we should have some time for question and answer and dialogue, and then we'll wrap exactly at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So with that, let me turn it over to Glenn Howard. And Glenn, why don't you kick us off? And I would just say also, if you're not speaking, if you please leave your phone on, leave your microphone on mute, that'd be great. So Glenn, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. Thank you for everyone today for joining us. This is been looking forward to this event. The title of the event today is the Forum on Security and Prosperity, Prospects for the Caspian Sea. It's very timely, I think, because of I think a lot of developments that are occurring around the world. We have the situation in Georgia continues to simmer. We also still have ongoing negotiations over Karabakh between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and then you have Kazakhstan that's also being a major player in the Caspian and trying to manage its oil exports and its neighbors that surrounded in this part of Central Asia that's very strategically important. We're trying to get a greater focus on the Caspian Sea again, and basically with the new administration coming in January, this is going to be very, I think, very timely because we're going to be setting the kind of the discussion points for the future of Central Asia, the Caspian region, and the two important countries that really matter in the region. And today we have the ambassador of Kazakhstan that's here. We also have the ambassador of Azerbaijan. And why are these? Why distinctly is Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan important? Because Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan basically represent two corners of the region, of the Caspian region. You have one that is a country that's Kazakhstan, that is a neighbor, borders China, developed very strong relations with China as a part of East-West transit. Then you have Azerbaijan down in the other part of the Caspian that is a neighbor with Iran, strategically important, been an important part of U.S. strategy ever since the creation of the Baku-Tbilisi Ceyhan pipeline, it's a BTC, but this has been a very important part of the world. And so now with the new administration coming in, one of the things we wanted to talk about was where this would fit. We know there's going to be a maximum pressure 2.0 campaign by the incoming Trump administration that will focus on Iran. And so what our purpose was just to kind of not just think about the region and how the Trump administration may deal with its new maximum pressure 2.0 just from the Persian Gulf side, but look at it from the northern side and the important part that the Caspian region plays in terms of grand strategy. We have a new administration coming in that thinks about, in national security terms, about the importance of the Caspian, of tariffs, and the importance of China that it views as a strategic rival. So the incoming administration will be very focused on national security from the realm of trade and transportation. And so one of the big issues that it previously championed was the 3 Cs initiative, something that Jim Carafano has been very adamant and talking about, and Heritage has played a very major role with that. And we're just delighted that the Saratoga Foundation today is able to help foster this and play a role with this event. The Saratoga Foundation is named after the famous Battle of 1777 in the American Revolutionary War, which was a turning point in the Revolutionary War. And Saratoga Foundation is named after that because we feel that this region, this part of the world, Eurasia, is really at a major point in history which is affecting Europe and Asia. So why are we here today? Because Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan are right in the middle between Europe and Asia. So both have good relations with China, and they have trying to develop a new trade corridor that's very important. So the Caspian has always been about oil and gas, but now it's also about other strategic issues like the Middle Corridor, which our guest today will talk about. So just on that note, thank you for everyone for joining today. Our first speaker will be Ambassador Yerzhan Akhbayev. Ambassador Akhbayev has been here. He's been Kazakhstan's ambassador to the United States since 2021. I heard him recently speak about Operation Sapphire. He's certainly very eloquent and articulate in trying to discuss the strategic interests of the United States in Kazakhstan and the assistance that he gave Kazakhstan through Operation Sapphire. Kazakhstan is a very strategically important part of this world and of Eurasia, and also rich in mineral deposits as well. The ambassador has been here since 2021. He comes from a very rich background and experience working in the Kazakhstan Foreign Ministry. He's been Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan. He served in that post from 2013 to 2021. So our second speaker will be the Ambassador Hazar Ibrahim. He's also been Azerbaijan's ambassador to the United States since 2021. So both have been in these posts for quite a while and have experience in that area. Ambassador Ibrahim has served in a very important strategic ally of Azerbaijan and Turkey. He served as ambassador to Turkey from 2017 to 2021. He's also got a lot of NATO experience and serving as head of mission in NATO from 2011 to 2017. And he also started his career off at the U.S. Embassy, or Azerbaijan's embassy of the United States here in Washington. And so my knowledge and contacts with him date back for more than a decade. So, Ambassador Akhbayev, I will turn the floor over to you. Please talk about and share with the new administration coming in, kind of your perspectives on the situation. I think Kazakhstan had a milestone achievement with the C5 meeting in New York, which brought together President Biden and the countries of the Central Asia met in New York, historic meeting, C5. My Azerbaijani friends have very keen on maybe changing the format to C5+1 to include Azerbaijan. So there's a lot of things strategically happening in the region now, and I'm sure you want to share those perspectives with us today and give us some insight on how the region is changing, where Kazakhstan will be with this new administration coming in, and how you would try to elevate its importance with the new incoming administration. So, Ambassador Akhbayev, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Very good morning to everyone, and allow me to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to both Saratoga and Heritage Foundations for hosting this event. And as Kazakhstan ambassador, I would like to start by reaffirming our enduring partnership with the United States under the continuing strategic partnership, which was elevated to the level of the enhanced strategic partnership during the Trump administration, the first one, 1.0. Our economic ties have reached really unprecedented levels. And following the recent call between President-elect and Trump and President Tokayev, we are really optimistic about maintaining and strengthening this high-level engagement. Our partnership with the United States overall has been really transformative. Early agreements on giant oil fields with Chevron and Exxon have not only driven Kazakhstan's economic development, but also fostered investments, highlighting the Caspian region's role as a both bridge between East and West, but also a region of immense opportunities. And just recently, President Tokayev fittingly remarked that the Caspian Sea is not only a vast reservoir of resources, but also a sea of unlimited opportunities. So as we navigate the realities of disrupted supply chains and restrictions, this perspective resonates very well. And Kazakhstan's strategic role as the region's largest economy and growing middle power is further underscored by its vast resources. So just let me give you some statistics. Kazakhstan's accounts for 43% of global uranium production. We're ranking among top 15 oil producers, and we're holding significant reserves of critical minerals. And Kazakhstan is prioritizing the diversification of trade routes with a particular focus on the Middle Corridor as a vital and sustainable link between our region, Central Asia, through South Caucasus to the global markets. And its growing importance is evident with cargo volumes increasing by an impressive 63% in the first 7 months of 2024 alone. So being the largest landlocked country, Kazakhstan understands how connectivity is important and is the cornerstone of economic growth, creating the opportunities that extends far beyond the movement of goods. I should also mention very collaborative efforts now unfolding in Central Asia. We used to be referred as the least integrated region of the world, but with Kazakhstan leading the way, initiating the dialogue, and we this past August we just had the 6th consultative meeting of heads of Central Asia. So we really experts started talking about the renaissance of Central Asia. And US plays a vital role in these processes through the C5+1 framework, which as plus one's roles are very, very important, and which was underscored by the recent C5+1 summit and the New York Declaration. Kazakhstan remains steadfast in ensuring that our region is not a battleground for competing powers, but a strategic land bridge, fostering constructive engagement. And we always reiterate that we wish to replace this great game concept with the concept of great gain for all in the heart of Eurasia. We also take pride in our engagement with the Organization of Turkic States. Kazakhstan has been one of the main drivers of its development. Today, it's an economic bloc with population exceeding 160 million, with GDP of 1.5 trillion. And through initiatives like the Turkic World Vision 2040, we're very much committed to shared prosperity and enhanced regional collaboration. Let me also mention that Kazakhstan plays a very important role in fostering peace and security in the region and stability. And we largely seen, due to our efforts, as a quite recognized, I would say, peace broker, from hosting most recently negotiations between our brotherly nation of Azerbaijan and Armenia, to facilitating the Astana process on Syria. We do have a proven track record on those issues. And in the context of the Middle Corridor, we are trying to create not only an economic connectivity between the regions, but really this is also seen as an instrument of creating security and stability in the larger Eurasia. So, in conclusion, let me just mention that Greater Caspian region is very rich in critical instruments to secure peace, stability, and sustainable development. However, the shifting dynamics of our time demand adaptive and visionary approaches. So we very much look forward to fruitful engagement with the incoming Trump administration 2.0 to address these and so many other issues. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Glenn, and everybody. I apologize for joining a little bit late. I am a little bit in quite a logistically weird location. Unlike our Caspian region, which is logistically is doing pretty well these days. Dr. Carafano, you mentioned in the beginning that there are not too many people left who are dealing with our region. And it's great to have two top-notch people who are here right now. Thank you very much for taking this initiative, and thank you both Heritage and Saratoga. I also love the name Glenn, and I really appreciate our long-standing friendship. I think it's almost impossible after my dear friend from brotherly Kazakhstan to add anything. He's always on top of the issues. But let me just try to conceptualize a little bit. Our brothers are hosting World Blitz and Rapid Chess Championship in New York, in Wall Street, soon by the end of December. And Ambassador very graciously invited me to join, to lose to all these stars there. But my point is not about the championship itself. It's chess championship. And I think nobody could have put it better than late strategist Zbigniew Brzezinski in his book, Grand Chessboard, about the importance of the Caspian and in general of Eurasia for the United States interests. So we are just followers and students of this great wisdom. And he definitely very well described deriving all the data when you see that basically 3/4 of the world population lives in Eurasia, where the most of economy is happening here. Most of everything else, if I may put it this way, is happening here. And of course, Caspian is right in the middle of it. So therefore, number one thing which conceptually should be taken into consideration is location, of course. When you look at the map, you can easily see that why Caspian is important with all the data coming into it. My dear friend mentioned all these institutions which were trying to develop, advance, like Organization of Turkic States. Glenn Howard mentioned C5, and he said that maybe Azerbaijan could be +1. Glenn, I should give you good news. We're already having that. So my president is always invited to all C5 meetings in Central Asia. And as Zbigniew Brzezinski put, it's not just brotherhood, it is brotherhood, but it's also reality. We should be all pretty pragmatic because Azerbaijan, indeed, as Zbigniew Brzezinski put it, cork from the Caspian Sea. Second thing, which I believe is very important to take into consideration when we talk about the Caspian Sea and its importance for the U.S. interest, is of course resources. My dear friend mentioned uranium and everything else. Basically, Kazakhstan has, I think, everything world world can actually possess. But the point is how we extract them, how we make them available. And on that, we, I think, worked very well. Uh, Baku Tbilisi Ceyhan was mentioned here. Of course, all these pipelines taking Caspian energy resources to the European market made it very, very critical for European energy security recently. Azerbaijan already exporting its natural gas to dozens of European nations, and the number is going up. We have a special agreement with the European Union to increase and to export more to European markets. But it's not only about fossil fuel. And I don't want to go into all this climate change issues, despite the fact that we just hosted COP29 quite successfully, and we had very good cooperation with the United States. And we all understand that it will be a different situation probably with the new administration. And we're also very pragmatic. We all understand that. And my president put it in the most eloquent way that while we are transitioning, everybody's transitioning to the renewables, but we never forget all this classic ways of getting energy resources. So oil and gas will be there for quite a long time, and will continue in that way. But there is a transition, there is more, and therefore resources are not limited to traditional resources. Wind is huge, and apparently Baku, and many of you visited Baku, and you understand that Absheron Peninsula, which looks like a beak of an eagle, is the second windiest place in Europe. And we have a lot of wind potential. Feasibility has been conducted already. We already have a lot of contracts signed with the major international companies. And in fact, just one information would show this huge potential. We have 20 times more wind potential that we can ever use domestically, which means that we'll be exporting most of it. On top of it, when we'll be using renewables inside Azerbaijan, it means it will free also some natural gas, which we'll also export to our European friends. So new resources, wind, solar should be taken into consideration too. And we're working very closely with our Central Asian friends. We're working with our Georgian friends, and Georgia was mentioned here too. And I hope that stability will happen in our friendly Georgia very soon. Romania and Hungary to build the submarine cable under the Black Sea, which would allow to transport 100% of Azerbaijani wind energy into the European market. So resources are very important. Those which my dear colleague mentioned, on top of it, the new ones which we are getting. And three, I think we should look into the dynamics. Of course, they're also related to resources and location as well. What are the dynamics? Everything geopolitically, geostrategically, put it in any context, is happening around us, period. And it was happening around us. All the conflicts are around us. Just yesterday, we had a lot of back and forth with our strategic ally, Turkey. My president spoke with President Erdogan, foreign minister spoke, and we committed ourselves to help Syrian people to get back on their feet. And also on any other conflict, we are trying to do our best to have our role in the most constructive way. These are the realities, so we cannot run away from that. So all the dynamics, current, past, or future, will definitely be around the Caspian Sea, and they will affect us. Be it strategic competition between United States or China, be it something else, be it hot, cold, you name it, it will affect us. So being together, working closely is very important for us. And I think it serves also, so that would be my kind of hint to the new administration. Let's take the advantage of Central Asian countries, Azerbaijan, and hopefully some others in future too, who are for the first time in history cooperating not only on paper, not only in terms of meetings, but also practically in many ways, and have the U.S. Caspian region relations move forward. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for that overview, Ambassador Ibrahim. I think both of your presentations kind of highlight the importance of the region, that you want to have very good relations with your neighbors. The United States has consistently shown that there is a track record of recognizing the strategic importance of the Caspian region. And it began with the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. The U.S. backed that project. It was very strategically important to help you. You mentioned the book by Dr. Brzezinski, The Grand Chessboard. It's always been about geography. And for Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, it's been trying to overcome geography as you move through state building. I think it was President Aliyev said you have to have a state first before you have a democracy. And I think that was a very important point, because state building and institutions that come with it take a very long time, especially when you tried for several decades, you've tried to evolve as a region and develop your connectivity with the outside world and overcoming the imperial past of what your countries went through. And I think that's a very important aspect of it. I think that, as you're mentioning before, one of the things that we need to keep in mind, that the incoming administration will have a different kind of prism through which it views the outside world. I tried to allude to that at the beginning of my presentation. I believe that the ideas of a previous administration of democratic resilience and focusing on that are now going to transit to a president that will be incoming who chants the phrase drill, drill, drill. So the idea is that energy will be very important in the incoming agenda of the new administration. I think it will look at, and the way it looks at the rest of the world, it looks at Europe as an economic bloc that with European Union that is it views as a trade rival. If someone was to come to me and say, well, what would be your elevator pitch to the incoming administration about why the Caspian region matters, I would say that, first of all, the Organization of Turkic States. You're talking about a new counterbloc that is emerging. That is, you have the population of Turkey, 80 million, plus the population of Central Asia. So you're talking about a vast new market for trade and goods that could be offer an appeal to the United States in terms of how the administration looks at the region, and then how it's situated with the importance of the energy and the role of transport and the trade corridors. So early on in this administration, we have the prospects of Azerbaijan moving in its journey to make peace with Armenia and trying to resolve that conflict. So, and then you have the ongoing Ukraine conflict that is occurring. And so you may have the region as a whole. The Caspian cannot escape the shadow of the Black Sea and the war in Ukraine. I think that many people have talked about the fact that there are 10,000 North Koreans in Kursk province fighting against Ukraine. The new phrase has emerged that the Indo-Pacific now begins in Ukraine. And I think that phrase maybe can help us characterize how the interconnection of and the connectivity between Europe and Asia now is in this region, the Caspian region. And so the specter of conflict haunts this region as both Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan try to develop and live in this neighborhood. It's a rough neighborhood. And so I think these issues are going to be very strategically important. I mentioned Operation Sapphire previously. The United States has shown that it has strategic interests in the region. It showed that when Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan played a major role in the Northern Distribution Network and became a key ally of the United States in helping to provide logistical supplies to the U.S. forces that were operating in Afghanistan. Azerbaijan did it by allowing its airspace to be a transit corridor for American airplanes flying to Afghanistan. It showed that, especially when the air routes through Pakistan were shut off, it opened up its airspace. Kazakhstan also became a very major transit point for the United States. So Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan have a history of working in cooperation with the United States that when we look at the region and how the incoming administration should look at it, I would say, Mr. President, why is the Central Asia and the Caspian region important? I would say it matters because the Organization of Turkic States could be, the United States could be a new join as an observer and try to help shape and mold this organization in ways that can be beneficial to American trade ties and interests. So these are some of the things that I would throw out there. Obviously, Maximum Pressure 2.0, the region plays an important role in that. So I've already mentioned that. So I will now, on that note, kind of stop the aspect of my presentation and now turn it over to see if anyone has ambassadors, if you have any comments and anyone in the chat room wants to ask a question, I'll try to call on you to, and ask your question. So, oh, right. Jim, that's a good point. The Heritage Foundation and Jim Carafano have created an informal group called the Sinaia Dialogue, which focuses on the connectivity between the Middle Corridor and the 3 Seas Initiative and the Black Sea and the Med. So if he's pointed out in the chat room that if you're interested in participating, just send him an email and he'll send you more information about it. Jim has been a champion of the 3 Seas Initiative, and rightfully so. The Trump administration put in over $300 million in U.S. funding to support it. So my key point here is about how the previous administration was a champion for new alternative trade routes and for building ties outside of the existing trade structures in Europe. So that's a very important point. Anybody else? Do we have some questions from the audience? Oh, I see. Okay, hang on. I see 2 questions here. Let's see. Oh, yes. Kate Chachava asked a question. Hi, Kate.
Hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be part of this very interesting meeting. I'm joining you from Tbilisi, Georgia. If you guys thought you were going to talk about our region and we would not be in, sorry about that. As you know, we don't really have much in the sense of maybe when you mentioned about economic prosperity, like our prospects with like a Turkey has, or our amazing neighbors with all the potential. But I think the in sense of the Georgian developments, I think it's extremely crucial to also find a way. You mentioned about the 5-minute elevator pitch, and I mean, I think Georgians really need that now as well. Like, how do we ensure that actually U.S. and the new Trump administration is actually taking us also into account? Because I think we have done really well to really anger all the potential friends, and we know we have many friends in the US. So I think in that sense, it would be very interesting to hear your perspectives about new administration positions in the region. You mentioned Ukraine, developments in Syria, developments in Israel, like all of that actually affects our region. So from that perspective, apart from economic priorities, do you see maybe other areas which could be actually of high interest for the new administration, and how would you recommend to move forward for the different actors from our region to actually make sure that the new administration has all the information necessary to push forward with prioritizing work in the areas and in the region? Thank you.
Ambassadors, do you want to respond or?
Lenny, if I
Glenn,
may.
she said U.S. administration.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Jim, do you want to address that? I see you raised your hand.
Actually, no. I quite look. I think Kate, the important thing right now is really kind of sharing situation awareness about what's going on in Georgia. I think that's really, really important for everybody to really understand. So obviously, Georgia is absolutely pivotal because it is the key linchpin on connecting the middle corridor in Europe. It's also an important littoral state in the Black Sea. So we all think Georgia has an important role to play, and we all want a stable and prosperous country. I think just sharing information about what's going on right now is the most helpful thing to do. So I was going to mention in the chat, we do have a kind of Georgia crisis group, which we're just using to share information with interested people. So if people want to share information about what's going on in Georgia, or they have a view that they think is important for a perspective they think is important for people to understand, or if they want to join the group so they can hear what other people are saying. Again, if you just drop me an email at james.carafano@heritage.org, I'm happy to add folks to that. So I had two questions, actually. One was, I would love an update on the status of where we are in the Azerbaijan-Armenia efforts to secure a long-term peace deal. So that would be really interesting. And the other one, if either one of the ambassadors could maybe elaborate a little more on the Organization of Turkic States and the kinds of things it does, so folks really understand about how to engage with the organization to really help them in their mission, that would be great.
Czar, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I always want, if you allow me. First, of course, I understand U.S. administration question from our Georgian colleague here. I cannot not say anything about Georgia because personally, from my perspective, Georgia is our eternal neighbor and eternal friend. And therefore, stability in Georgia is absolutely crucial. And Azerbaijan has always been by the side of Georgia. And even these days, there were some deals signed between SOCAR in order to help Georgian economy. So all the best to our Georgian friends, and I'm sure that we'll continue working very closely with them on all the critical international and regional issues. Coming back to the question about Azerbaijan-Armenia negotiations. Well, they are good news. We are negotiating quite intensively. One, two, we are negotiating basically directly, which is also very critical because at the end of the day, we're also eternal neighbors and hopefully at one point friends. I don't believe that it can happen very fast, very soon, because it will take probably generations to have complete sustainable stability in the region. But we can take very important steps right now to build this positive perspective. So direct negotiations already produced some positive results, and on the draft, we have agreed on the most of the points. The couple of issues which I believe are solvable, but the main issue remains that there is a provision in the basically the preamble of the Armenian constitution, which refers to the Declaration of Independence of Armenia, which has direct territorial claims against Azerbaijan. And not only Azerbaijan, but I am speaking about Azerbaijan. So if we want to have sustainable peace, of course, whatever deal we sign should be sustainable and workable. If it goes against the constitution of one of the states, it's not going to work. So therefore, we hope that our Armenian counterparts and colleagues will be able to tackle that issue. So positive thing is that we're moving forward. We have solved most of the issues, but this stumbling block is still there. Another thing which I believe is a stumbling block is, if I may phrase it this way, is negative influence of some outside actors. Uh, some are state actors, some are some political forces in some countries, which basically take the side, and instead of helping, they spoil the situation. So I hope that we will be able, together with our counterparts in Armenia, to get rid of the stumbling blocks, because I think uh, on the draft itself and also on the ground, when we already delimited some of our borders and we're talking on communications, that progress needs to be continued. As far as the organization of Turkic states is concerned, well, as former Azerbaijan ambassador to brotherly Turkey, um, let me tell you one thing which I believe many are omitting. Everybody, or most people, look at OTS as something geopolitical. Well, we shouldn't. It's very practical. It's very natural that we have this organization because we have the same roots. Uh, but at the same time, it's not going against anybody. This is the organization for the sake of strengthening relations among the members of OTS and in the most practical ways. Uh, Many might think that, yes, we're working through OTS on some cultural, political, and other issues. But believe me, there are some specific issues which would help also the middle corridor, logistic, infrastructure. There are some working groups where we work on customs fees, on regulations. These are very critical because that would open up all the potential of the Caspian region to all the partners who want to work with us. Thank you.
Ambassador Ashikbayev, do you have any comments on the Organization of Turkic States and Kazakhstan's perception involvement?
Of course, but let me first address the issue of our participant from Georgia. Even though it's the question was to the US, I would say my personal vision is that some consistent strategy on the part of major players connecting regions along the middle corridor would really be helpful. And in what I mean by that, so the United States do have a strategy with regard to Central Asia, though a bit outdated since realities changed dramatically back in 2021, and the reference to Afghanistan is no longer that relevant as it was highlighted in the strategy. So, but it's my understanding that there has never been a consistent coherent US strategy with regard to South Caucasus due to different reasons. But it's now high time to streamline those perspectives, and this really would be in the interest of all the involved players, because we are talking about middle corridor running in the heart of Eurasia, and there are plenty of benefits to take account of. And secondly, I would advocate for much greater practical US investments in the region. It's very difficult situation, the disconnect between some political statements and actual presence, economic presence of the US companies in the region is, apart from energy sector, in case of Kazakhstan, probably so many other of our partners, we really see very few growth areas. Prospects are huge, be it in agriculture, all the way from agriculture to IT industries. Potential is there, and all is needed is to translate those political commitments into some practical actions. With regard to organization of Turkic states, my brother Hazar has been quite eloquent on that. Let me just add that it's a bit it's a wrong perception to see, and that's my experience, to see OTS as solely Turkey's organization. This is not the case. You can take a look at the those organizations that really been the structure of the organization itself. It started, of course, with International Organization of Turkic Culture, Turksoy, back in the early 1990s, and this supports the idea. This is a natural partnership which developed from cultural ties to then Parliamentary Assembly of Turkic States, Turkbay is stationed in Baku, to Turkic Academy, which is headquartered in Astana, and so on and so forth. So it's a very simplistic way to look at the OTS, simply because there is a big player with much bigger economy. But really, we are talking about and trying to create a much more interest-based organization, both in a sense, it's a universal organization, since it has to do with so many areas of cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, I want to go back to something you asked about, and I think that what sells with the Trump administration, incoming Trump administration, is the idea of trade and economic blocks, and where does the U.S. fit within that. So in the case of Georgia, I would argue that the administration could focus on the Anaklia Port project, a deep water port in the Black Sea that brings together all the countries in the region, and that the United States could play a role with the Georgian government and trying to broker some type of helping these two groups reconcile their differences, but holding out the prospect of the Anaklia of U.S. involvement, helping Georgia develop the Anaklia Port project. And I think because that interests Kazakhstan, interests Azerbaijan, that helps strengthen the connectivity of the region. So that would be one point I would say in these that struck me when you asked your question. Now I want to go to Andrej. You've been very patiently waiting. You asked a question. Zoltan, I see that you raised your hand, so I'll get to you. So Andrej, do you want to ask a quick question?
Thank you for the floor. My name is Andrej. I work at the PUP Initiative, the first Serbian-American think tank dedicated to improving relations between the two countries. So yeah, good morning to everyone, although it's afternoon here in Belgrade. Now, it appears that further continuation of the US-China trade war is imminent, and the critical raw materials are among the key battlegrounds. And all around the world, decision makers are trying to figure out how to hedge against the potential consequences of the trade war. And I would like to know what is the perspective of Kazakhstan in this regard, considering the connection and proximity to China, as well as the growing critical materials partnership with the US and European Union. So how directly do you think the tariff wars will impact Kazakhstan? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Andrej, for your question. And I'd say Let me start first with the very successful visit by my president to Belgrade just recently. We are forging very amicable and interest-based relationship. With regard to trade wars, looming trade wars, I would say the best answer is diversification, hedging against those risks. And really, Kazakhstan has been the case in this regard. Let's take uranium. As I mentioned, Kazakhstan accounts for roughly 43-45% of global natural uranium production. But it's run through joint ventures, of course, understandably with our neighbors, both Russia and China, but also with Japan, France, and Canada. And this is really gives us some room for maneuvering in making sure we are not caught in the situation we have no alternatives. So diversification is really the answer, but there is also an understanding to which the mentality in Kazakhstan, to which I referred as transforming the great game into great gain. So we really believe that Central Asia should not become a battlefield of different ideas or conceptions, but we really can be a lab, so to say, where different cooperative engagements can be tested. And it's equally applicable not only to great powers, but also to every desiring actors, be it from Southeast Asia, Middle East, Gulf states, or Latin America, like, of course, Europe, major powers go without saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoltan?
Okay. So yes, my name is Zoltan Koshkovic. I am from Budapest, from the Center for Fundamental Rights. I'm a geopolitical analyst, and I wanted to make a small intervention supporting Their Excellencies' points about the organization of the Turkic states. Hungary is an observing member of this organization, and I can absolutely confirm that this organization is a fantastic platform for diplomacy and communication, and also, of course, cultural exchange and trade, which comes with it. The ambassador has alluded to the fact that Azerbaijan and Hungary, as well as Romania, have a very intriguing and hopefully very profitable energy project in the future. I think that the OTS has contributed to that. Also, the OTS allows Hungary to sort of escape from the ideologically rigid language of the European Union and communicate more informally and more directly with our partners among the Turkic states. So all in all, I'm not sure that it has no geopolitical implications, to be entirely sure with you, but so far the OTS has been one of the good guys as far as international organizations are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody else, I'm looking, I don't see any other questions. Jim, if I'm missing anyone, let me know. But
Glenn, I think since we haven't talked about Turkey at all. I mean, I don't really have a strong sense, right, on what U.S.-Turkish relationships are going to look like under the Trump administration. I'm relatively optimistic since I think Trump had pretty good relationships with Turkey. As you know, on both the right and the left in the United States, people are divided on this. But I don't know if you had any thoughts on the Turkish relationship you wanted to share, or any predictions on that, and then you can go ahead and wrap, I think, because we're almost at the top of the hour.
Yeah, Jim, I would say that the U.S.-Turkey relations, you're spot on. I think the Trump's decision to leave from Syria and order the U.S. forces there, about over 1,000 that are based there, to leave was really very much appealed to President Erdogan in Turkey. I think that in the post-Assad environment in Syria, that Turkey is the regional power that will have a major say in what happens there. Now, there are some indications that the Biden administration ordered airstrikes in Syria. They're somewhat determined to stay on in Syria, and I think it may have been a counter message against the incoming Trump administration. But I certainly see that there are signs that Turkey is very strategically important. They were talking about signing a free trade agreement with Turkey, between the United States and Turkey, and certainly Great Britain was very close to signing an agreement with Turkey that would give it an access to a market of 80 million. So I think that the Trump administration will have a very positive engagement role with it. Of course, trying to decide what happens in Syria in a post-Assad environment and what happens to the YPG Kurds that are there, who maintain close ties with the PKK, a terrorist organization deemed by the United States, is going to be a problem, and Turkey will have a voice in trying to make sure that this group, which it views as being an existential threat to its national security, that it will be solved, and that Turkey will have a major role with everything. So it's involved. The Astana process played a very important role in trying to end the Syrian civil war, and so the Kazakhstan ambassador mentioned that role that Kazakhstan played with it. So I think Azerbaijan, which has a strategic relationship with Turkey, is very important. And once they resolve these issues, I think Turkey will have an important role with Armenia and improving relations with Armenia once Azerbaijan and Armenia sign an agreement normalizing relations. So I think there's a lot of, I think on the agenda of the Trump administration looks very, very good in terms of the differences in perspective than the Biden administration had. So I think that'll be very enticing to President Erdogan. In fact, President Erdogan was when Trump was assassinated or attempted assassination, he was the first president to call ally of the United States to actually call Trump after the assassination. So there's a deep interest and relationship between the two. I think it will continue, but of course we need to see how things develop with the national security staffing of the United States. But I'm very optimistic, and so I think on that note, I wanted to thank everybody on behalf of Jim Carafano, the Heritage Foundation, and the Saratoga Foundation. Our first joint effort, hopefully one of many to come, will continue. Saratoga Foundation will be posting a video of the event on its website and sharing it. And so we look forward to seeing you all again, and thank you for your participation. Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Ashokbayev, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.